Well, it's hello from him,
Richard Moore, and it's hello from her.
It's Michele Monro again. This podcast is slightly different in that today I have a surprise guest, which even you don't know about Richard. So he was born in Leicester, England, and educated in both his birthplace and Hereford. For more than 2 decades, he's worked as a music engineer, starting at the ripe old age of 15 as head of sound at his local theatre, and started audio restoration as a sideline. Since then, he's worked with several of the big record labels and multiple large music estates. Sound familiar? Richard, sound familiar? Because please welcome the wonderfully talented Richard Moore.
Hello, yes.
It's like this is your life, isn't it?
Isn't it just? Absolutely. Well, at least...
Well, I thought I'd interview you so our listeners get to know you a little better.
Fair enough.
Now, I haven't sent you the questions. You know nothing about this. So
absolutely.
Let's roll it, hey?
Absolutely. And know that I am in charge of the editing, so that's fine. Okay.
That's what you think. Now, tell me, were your parents in the music industry?
My father wasn't. My father, bless him, he loves music, but has not got a musical bone in his body. My mother, on the other hand, was she plays the electronic organ. At least she did. She doesn't anymore, bless her. But she was an organ teacher. She taught music and taught people how to play the electronic organ for many, many years.
Wow. So, do you have a favourite childhood memory?
Ooh, well, my favourite childhood memories are probably from when I was a chorister at Hereford Cathedral. And we did brilliant things there. We made TV series. I was in the TV adaptation of Box of Delights. I was a chorister in that with Patrick Troughton and John Horsley and various people like that in there. And we used to do regular choral evensong broadcasts, and we travelled around the country and around the area to sing at all sorts of places. And there was the Three Choirs Festival, and I was only there for 3.5 years, but it was a really packed 3.5 years.
So is that when you decided on your career path, and why sound engineering?
No, I'd actually decided on my career path earlier. I was obsessed with sound from... as a toddler. I mean, my mum's got photographs of me stood up by a record player at the age of 2 or 3. You know, I'm really, really small in these pictures. But I was obsessed with sound from the very start. So it's always been something since I learnt what jobs you could do. It's always been an obsession of mine to actually become a sound engineer.
And did your parents approve of your decision to enter the music business?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't mind as long as I could, as long as I could make a living. It didn't really worry them.
Yeah, they didn't want you to be a doctor. Or
no, they're not that sort of parent, and I'm very much the same. You know, what your children want to do, as long as they're going to be able to make a living, you know, then it doesn't actually matter. It's what's going to make them happy is the important thing.
Well, you worked for an arts college covering sound and technical requirements for many years and were then made redundant. So is that what prompted you to go freelance as a music engineer?
Well, pretty much, although I had been doing it for a while anyway as a sideline. And it's a lot of it's your fault, really, because I dabbled with it up to the point that I contacted you one year saying,
"Well, we'll get to that."
Yeah, you know, so that's fine. Well, we'll get back to that later. But yes, that's what prompted me to make it one of my main jobs. Put it that way.
Mm. And do you remember the first time you heard Matt Monro?
Yes. That was my mother again. She loved Matt Monro. She, in fact, I probably bought it. I think I probably bought it for her as a Christmas present, under the prompting of my father. A copy of Heartbreakers. This is the first Heartbreakers in about 1980-ish. And I bought her that, and of course she played it to death. And so that's where I first heard him, and whatever my mother, because my mother was into all sorts of things. There's still artists that my mother loved that I still love today. She loved the Carpenters, and so I still love the Carpenters now. And Mel Torme and various people like that. Nat King Cole, that was another one. And I've grown to love the music that she loved. And Matt was one of those artists. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So Matt was one of those artists, and somebody that obviously I just followed.
Do you have a favourite recording of his?
I do, but it's a bit obscure. Which is not surprising considering I've worked on pretty much the whole of his catalogue. And I think one of my favourites is called A Few Tender Words, which is he recorded in a single take, which is ridiculous. He only ever sang it once, and it sat in the can for 50 years until we unearthed it for Matt Uncovered. But yeah, I think that's probably my favourite one for some reason. I have no idea why.
A few tender words mean so much to someone blue. A girl.
Well, Dad's idols in his youth, listening to Radio Luxembourg, were Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, Perry Como, and of course Sinatra. But who was your idol as a young man?
Idol. Well, I mean, I've always been a Beatles fan, but I suppose my idol really was George Martin, rather than a musician as such. It was on the production side. I've actually got an autograph photo of him somewhere. Don't ask me where it is these days, but it'll be here somewhere. That I wrote away for, sent it off to Air Productions. When I was probably about 10 or 11 years old, that I sent this request off for an autograph from George. So yeah, he was my idol. It's all the people that he was involved. Absolutely, yes, definitely.
Yeah. So here's the biggie. How did you come to work with the Matt Monro estate?
Yes. Yeah. How long have we got? Okay. So what happened with this is it was just purely by chance that I came across your newly launched, this was about 2005-ish, I would say, your newly launched mattmonro.com website. And I saw that you had for sale on that a CD of Christmas Magic, and I think Polka Dots was the other one.
Yep.
And so I ordered a copy of that myself. And it came, and I listened to it and thought, I think I can do better than that. So I wrote to you and just said, hello, and I told you a bit about myself and that I do restoration. And if there's anything I can ever help you with, just let me know. And of course, it was, yeah, sure, okay, thank you very much. Don't call us, we'll call you. And,
in fairness, I used to get about 5 or 6 of these a month.
I totally understand where you were coming from. But I'm a persistent I always have been when it comes to things like this. So I wrote to you again later on.
Again.
Well,
and
yeah,
again.
I think it was only the second time, actually. Because it just so happened that my email turned up in your inbox on the same day that a cassette that you'd got had snapped.
Yep.
And you said to me, well, as it happens, I've got this cassette that's snapped. Can you help me out with it? I said, yeah, send it off to me. Let's see what we can do. And so you sent me the cassette, which I duly mended and digitized, and sent you back the cassette and probably a copy on CD it would have been at that point. And it was sort of, I think you were happy with what I've done and impressed by what I was done. And so you said, oh, well, I'm working on this project with EMI at the moment called The Rare Monro. And would you be interested in helping me out with some other tracks? Because you'd got the BBC tracks, you've got the Matt Sings Monro tracks. Not Matt Sings Monro, what was it called? Matt's Kind of Music, that's what it was. I should remember that because it's pretty much the same as our podcast name, but still. And you said, well, look, do you fancy sorting these things out for this release? And I said, yeah, of course I would. So you sent me the cassettes for those as well. They were delivered to the school that I was working at the time. And I did as you asked. And sent them off, and EMI were happy with them, and we got chatting, and we spent a lot of time on the phone, and we discussed various things, and before I knew it, I was invited to come down to the very first Fans Reunited at the Beck Theatre.
Let me just explain it a little bit further.
Go on.
I got several emails from you, and in the end I thought, oh gosh, how am I going to get rid of this guy? I know, I'll send him this buggered cassette and that will be the end of that. And that's exactly why I sent it to you, not expecting anything at all.
Ah, well.
And of course, what the listeners won't know is that years later, we released it as Matt's Live in Australia, and you can't tell it's from a cassette desk at all. It's brilliant.
No, I mean, it's that turned out well. I mean, some of the stuff that comes off cassette can be awful, but cassette is a very much maligned media, and sometimes the quality you get off a cassette can be really, really good if it's well recorded in the first place.
Yeah, I didn't expect anything from it at all. I just thought, how do I get rid of him without being insulting? I know, I'll send something. In fact, I don't think we met for 2 years. We did all the work remotely. But
it was only about a year. Because
I thought it was 2 years. But anyway, you since admitted to me that you were nervous about meeting me. Why?
I was, because, I mean, I'd worked in live sound and theatre, and you came across various, famous people and so on, and you pass the time of day with them, that's fine. But the family of an idol, I mean, I'd been a fan of Matt's since I was sort of 8 or 9 years old, which is what I was when Heartbreakers came out. And so to travel all the way down to Harrow and sit outside their house, thinking, oh my God, I'm about to go and meet the family of somebody I really admire, and I just didn't know what to expect. But of course, I mean, it was lovely because your mum and your brother and yourself were all so welcoming, and I absolutely adored your mum.
Doesn't sound like me at all.
I know, well, absolutely. Well, I don't know. We talked a lot by that time. But I mean, it was wonderful to meet your mum and spend the time that I was able to with your mum, and it was She was a sweetheart, bless her, and every time I saw her, she says, "Oh, I just want to thank you again for everything you've done." She was an absolute diamond, your mother. So
she was. Well, you've worked with me for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
So why did you stay so focused on one singer?
Well, I haven't really. It's just.
Well, you have.
Well, I mean, yeah.
You've done other projects.
I've done other projects, yeah, but when somebody of the caliber, you're working with somebody of the caliber of Matt Monro, you want to do everything you can. You want to make sure that all his recordings, and I've worked on, I would say, more than 95% of his recordings. There's a few of the earlier ones that were on Parlophone that I haven't worked on. But other than that, I've worked my way pretty much through the whole of his catalogue. I've even remastered his Decca stuff and everything, And you just want to make sure that everything that is out there can be as good as it can possibly be.
You couldn't have envisioned it would be 20 years on,
No,
though, could you?
I don't think so. Who'd have guessed that we would have such a friendship between the two of us, and not fall out with each other in that time as well, I mean, we've annoyed each other from time to time, of course, but we've never really fallen out.
I am annoying, and I admit my faults, But, I mean, I've always been impressed by you, not just because of your musical expertise, but you have exactly the same work ethic as me, We work all hours under
Yeah.
the sun. You're like a dog without a bone when you're on the hunt for something.
Indeed.
You've managed to unearth several lost recordings of Dad, found, well, multiple jingles, and continue to explore all avenues. So what's the motivation?
Well, it's just when it's the motivation of a fan, really. You know, I want to be able to hear absolutely everything I possibly can. You can become obsessive about artists, and I'm afraid I get like that. If I'm particularly into an artist, I want to hear everything that they've done. You know, and I know there's other people like that out there, but when you work on the catalogue as well, and you have access to all the studio recordings and multi-tracks and all the radio stuff and everything, it's a delight, it's a joy to get involved with these things when it becomes, you feed on the obsession, as it were, and I have with other artists I've worked with, because I worked with several other estates as well, and it's the same thing. You get sort of obsessed. I think that's the only word I can say for it. It's not really the word I mean, but I think that's probably a good description. You get obsessed with the artists that you're working on, particularly, collector. It's the collector mentality, I'm afraid, that you just need to get hold of everything that they've done and listen to everything that they've done.
Well, once I'd told Steve Wolf, who was then the head of EMI Gold, that I wanted you to master all Dad's recordings. He did take up the mantle, ignoring Abbey Road, because you were quicker, better and cheaper. We then got permission to go through the EMI archives. Was that a thrill? What did you unearth there?
Yeah, it was a thrill. It was a thrill to go down to Hayes, where the EMI archive was. At that point, it's not there anymore, but it's that purpose-built archive that they had down in Hayes, which housed everything. It housed all the paperwork, it housed all the master tapes, all going back to the early days of recording. It had metal parts and 78s, and they even had a little museum there. I can remember walking around their little museum they had with artifacts. They're like the gramophone that Scott took to the Antarctic, and the microphone that the abdication speech was read down, all sorts of things like that. So yeah, it was a thrill and a half to be able to go down there and see. I mean, it was huge, the number of tapes and things that were there, and you'd just have a quick look at the tapes and you think, oh my god, look at that's the master tape for that, and so yeah, incredible, really incredible. It was an honor to be able to do that. And now they've moved everything to a purpose-built mega archive called Iron Mountain, and all of the EMI tapes, which are now owned by Warner, and all the tapes owned by Universal, and all the tapes owned by BMG are all, and I think probably Sony as well, are pretty much all in the same building now. I mean, God knows, you'd lose half the heritage of the country if that place ever went up in smoke. It's not really accessible like it used to be. So we were really lucky. There's a guy who we dealt with when we were down at the archive, and he still works for Universal. Very, very, very helpful guy. He says that he doesn't see anything physically anymore. He's behind a computer, and he does the research that they want from the catalogues, and he hits a button, sends it down to the archive, and somebody down in the archive pulls the stuff out and sends it off to the studio. And so he doesn't get to work with the physical product anymore. So, we were really lucky to be able to go there at that time where all these things were. Well, not only that,
we unearthed a whole load of titles.
Absolutely, yes.
That had never been released.
Yeah, I went through.
I automatically assumed they were going to be bad tapes or D-sides, and there was, Daddy singing New York, New York, and things like that, and you think, nah, it's not going to be any good. And it was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. we went through, well, I went through all the computerized listings, and we took copies of all the original session paperwork for everything that EMI held. And yes, there was extraordinary, but your dad used to over-record, as a lot of artists did back then. They'd
because it
record...
was so expensive in the studio that you used every minute.
Yeah, you did. And he would record more than was necessary.
Well, his nickname was One Take Monro, right? And so he'd go in with George and he'd do say 3 tracks down that George wanted. And then they'd maybe have half an hour left. So it's like, okay, let's lay a few more things down.
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact,
and they went in the vault.
But not always. I mean, We're Going to Change the World was one of those. That was in the last half an hour of a session. But yeah, a lot of stuff was recorded, and they'd have, if they were putting an album together, they might have 16 tracks there and say, right, okay, we're going to choose from this pool of tracks, and those 12 are the ones we're going to use for the album, and those ones, we're not going to use those. But we might use them for something else, but then they'd move on. And so they'd forget about the stuff that they'd recorded before. Well, that's old now. We're just going to record something new. So we're going to forget about those. So those are just going to sit in the vault. And so it's good, really. And your dad was very, very lucky that so much of his material has survived.
Yeah, but you see, we're not talking from the listener's point of view, 10 or 20 tracks. The first thing we released out of those finds was the Rare Monro, which had 50 tracks we put on it.
Yeah, some of those were previously released, but rare. Yeah. But then we got to the second volume, which had even more tracks on it, and everything on that was unreleased. So there was so much exciting there. But you consider that he had a 30-year recording career as well. So
but Steve Wolf at EMI said to me, "Oh no, we can't release that. It hasn't got Born Free on it," and that was his mentality.
Yeah,
if you remember.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we had a deal. We did not Matt Uncovered.
It was The Greatest.
Sorry, The Greatest, and I said, if that goes gold within 2 weeks, can I do the Rare Monro? And he went, yeah. And he went gold in about 10 days. So he had no choice. And it did really well, considering it didn't have Born Free on. I said, fans that have followed Daddy since the beginning have got about 50 versions of Born Free. You know, we need to do something different. And then because of the success of that, he did let us sort of run riot, didn't he, with bringing out new titles.
Because he told me the very first time I met him, actually, at that first Fans Reunited, he told me at that point, and it had been out days, that it had already sold 10,000 copies, the Rare Monro. So, it's...
we're very pleased.
Yeah.
Well, you know that the business can be a hard slog, and it's sprinkled with ups and downs. So what motivates you when times have been tough?
Sheer bloody mindedness.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's you've got to keep pushing, and you press on with things. I never stop approaching different people and saying, "Look, can I help you with something? Can I do this project? Can I do that project?" It's how the complete EMI for Cherry Red came about, because I approached Cherry Red and said, "Look, what do you think?" Thinking that. I don't know whether it's their sort of thing, Cherry Red, but they said, yeah, please, let's go, let's work with that. And that led to the Shirley Bassey set that I've done for them as well. And, Universal after we did, because once again, that was me phoning them up and saying, look, you've got Matt's Capital catalogue now. Because of the EMI collapse and the sale, and half of the material stayed with Warner's and half of it went to Universal. I said to them, look, you're not doing anything with Matt's catalogue. And the response was, we own Matt's catalogue.
Yeah.
I said, yes, you do. You own the Capital catalogue. Do we? All right, hang on a minute. And so I got an email back a few days later saying, yeah, we do, don't we? Yeah, we should do something with that. So I said, well, we've got this project that we've been trying to get off. It was penciled in for being issued by EMI. It was on our list. When they collapsed, so it didn't happen, which was the Stranger in Paradise set. And so, I then got a relationship with Universal and worked happily with them for a few years until the guy that I happened to be working with left. And all of a sudden, then it goes quiet again, and you then have to start reaching out again to people to see whether you can get work. And it's a constant battle, and it's difficult. It's disheartening sometimes because I think, and I'm not to blow my own trumpet, I think I put out quality products. I don't put out rubbish. Everything, I put my heart and soul into these things. I make sure they're as good as they possibly can be. Even if the source isn't going to be all that great, I still try and make it as good as it possibly can be. To make it the last word. I mean, I see with Matt's catalogue, it's not going to get remastered again. It's unlikely ever to get remastered again. So let's get it right. Let's make sure that the quality of the recordings that are out there are as good as they possibly can be. And I cannot see now how anything could be improved on. Technology for capturing, digitizing, if you like, material from analog tape, it's not really going to get any better than it currently is. So if I digitize something from an analog tape now, that digital copy is going to sound identical to that tape if I do it at a high, if not to bore the listener being technical, at a high bit rate and a high sampling rate. You do it at that, and you're not going to tell the difference. You side by side listen through the system, you're not going to notice the difference between the two. So I can't see how Matt's material could get any better. So that's the way I work. I want the music to sound as good as it possibly can. And I don't charge a fortune to the labels, but getting work out of them is like pulling teeth. It's they'll say, oh well, we'll just send it to Abbey Road, but then Abbey Road are going to charge them a fortune for it, and it's just the way it is. But what can I do? I've been doing this for 20 years now. I get what out there I can. I work for all sorts of little labels. I work for Caldera, which is a nice little soundtracks label, which I do I would say a good 80-90% of their releases are done by me. I work for Jasmine Records. I do work for Cherry Red. So I get work, put it that way. Yeah, but it's just the way it is. It's not really the sort of thing where it can be your full-time job. So I have to do other things as well. But that's, that doesn't worry me too much, providing I get the chance to do this.
Well, as our listeners know, I wrote a book on Dad called The Singer's Singer, The Life and Music of Matt Monro. But you also co-authored Special Reserve, the complete recording sessions on Dad. Did you enjoy that experience?
I loved it because it's getting into the nitty-gritty, getting into the details of the recording sessions. Who did what, who the engineer was, who the arranger was, what they recorded in that session, how many takes, all of these sort of things. And so I was able to research everything due to that trip we made down to Hayes. I was able to research everything that he'd ever recorded for EMI and Capitol. Capitol in the States were really helpful with getting what paperwork they had, which wasn't very much, but then the AFM, which is the Musicians Union in America, their Hollywood branch, were brilliant. They sent me everything they'd got, so that was really good stuff as well. So I now know who played, for instance, on all of his Hollywood recordings. The one I've never found out is his New York recordings, because the AFM New York are organised in a completely different way and can't find the paperwork. But so those Stranger in Paradise recordings still irritate me, is the fact I don't know who it is who's playing on those sessions, and they're really good musicians, But
without a phone,
that's it. And I've tried and hundreds of emails backwards and forwards between me and the AFM in New York, but we never got there. But there you go.
Well, you also wrote a 2-part special on the Beatles Star Club recordings with Hans Olof Gottfriedson.
That's right, Hans. Right. Yes,
the Hans is Collector magazine.
That's
so how
right.
did that come about?
Well, Hans and I have been conversing for many years. I'm obviously, I don't know, I've mentioned it before, being a Beatles fan, but I am. And Hans wrote a book called From Cavern to Star Club, and it was all about their early career before they were signed by EMI. There were some things, he actually put his postal address in the book saying, look, if you spot anything that's an error in this, because he's an academic, he's Swedish and he works for a university, write to me, let me know what it is. And I spotted a few things in there, and technical, just because technical things that I understand that he might not necessarily. And contacting him, and he was very interested in this. So we started a dialogue, and we worked together we did a set for Bear Family Records. It was a German record company who were issuing all the Beatles and Tony Sheridan material. And I didn't actually work on the audio side of it, but I helped him with the book. They were doing a deluxe version of it with a hardback book in there. So I helped him with some of that. And he was really interested in the Star Club tapes. That's one thing that he's like me, you get obsessed with things. You're like a dog with a bone. And he had managed to track down the guy who owned the original reel of the Star Club tapes, which were made on this little domestic reel-to-reel that was just put on a table. And Hans found the guy who got the original tape. And so he was able to be the first person since 1977 to actually listen to the contents of this tape, because it'd always been conjecture. What did they record? What was on the tape? So now he'd got the chance to listen to it all and note down everything that was in there. So I pretty much was his seconder with that article, particularly the technical side of things. But yeah, it was a fascinating project, and it took us quite a while to get through that.
Well, I'm glad you opted for the short version.
I know. It's what you get me started on these things. But the upshot of it all is that we were able to help the original owner get in touch with Peter Jackson, the film director, who now has bought the reel and hopefully is working on it and can do something to make it listenable at some point in the future.
Well, talking about my book, again, it led to two separate book launches, one for the hardback and one for the paperback. Well, the first was at Ronnie Scott's and the second at EMI. So what can you tell me about these events, and did you enjoy the evenings?
I did. And I met some great people there. I spent ages talking to Colin Keys, and one of the reasons that the remixed version of The Other Side of the Stars material that's on the Cherry Red Complete EMI, one of the reasons I mixed that was due to a conversation I had with Colin that night. He was telling me just how disappointed he was with the final project and the awful mixes on there. So I said to him that night, I promised him, look, I said, Colin, if there's ever a chance that I can remix that stuff and get it right, I will. And yeah, it took me about 15 years, but I did actually manage that. So that was great. I met Helen Shapiro and her husband, John, who I'm still in contact with, and I've been out to lunch with. And, we John particularly and I hit it off. We spoke quite a lot over the years. And then the second one was the biggie, as far as I was concerned, because I actually finally managed to meet my idol, Sir George Martin, there. So, that's the biggest memory of the lot.
That was really funny, though, because what people don't know is the first one, there was so many people there, not just fans, guests, radio people, magazine reporters. I didn't know who anybody was. I didn't know who I was speaking to half the time. Yeah. And when I was signing books for people, I'd actually have to say, how do you spell your name? Because I couldn't remember it. And then when they would say B-O-B, I'd feel a bit stupid. At the second one, I said to Titan, my publishers, everybody has to have a name badge and who they are. So whether they're radio people, whatever. So I know who I'm talking to. Well, George Martin hadn't stepped inside EMI for years. I mean, years. And of course, I never expected him to come because he hated those sort of little soiree things. And when he walked into EMI, it was like the parting of the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Literally. And people were all around him. He went, no, come to see Michele, come to see Michele. And he had a name badge on. I said, George, that wasn't meant for you. He said, if everybody else has got one, I'll wear mine. He said.
Yes.
And I said, thank you so much for coming. He said, he was my best friend. I wouldn't have missed it.
Yeah. Yeah, and
he was a wonderful
it was
person.
Lovely to actually be able to meet the man and have a shouted conversation with him. Bless him, because he was stone deaf at the time. It was funny because I thought I was talking loud enough, but I'd say something to him, and then his wife Judy would then shout it at twice the volume that I had to him as well.
Yeah, but there was about 200 people there.
There
as
was,
well,
but it's well known that George's hearing, because of all those years in the studio with the music blaring, had done him quite a lot of harm as far as his hearing was concerned. So it was a bit of a shouted conversation, but it was good.
I got brownie points for that night from you.
Oh, most definitely. But I was able to chat with him. I was able to give him a CD of his favourite recording of Matt, which was, what's the name of that song? That it's a demo. It was
the one they did it at the home.
Yeah,
he found it. My gosh!
He found an acetate at home. Yeah,
yes.
He found an acetate, and he put it as his favourite recording.
No one will ever know.
That's the
no
one.
one will ever know.
And he put it on his hugely expensive.
He was at piano.
Yeah. Oh no, it wasn't. That was Johnny at the piano.
No.
Oh no,
Johnny told me.
Well, no,
he found it in his loft from a rehearsal they did, and it was him at piano. He told me.
Well, yeah, but he was wrong. I'm afraid, because I know what session it came from, and it was Johnny at the piano, and it was at Abbey Road. It was that late night session that they did, which was supposed to become his first album that they recorded various things as a trio. Absolutely. And that's when it was recorded. And George thought that it was a demo session somewhere, and he'd issued it on the hugely mega expensive Genesis Publications autobiography that he'd put out. And I found the master tape. He thought it didn't exist anywhere but this acetate that he'd got. And I found the master tape, and so I was able to master it. It was before we did... It did finally come out on the Rare and Monro, but Matt Uncovered. But it was before that was issued. And so I was able to give him a copy of that and say, look, I've found the master tape of your favourite recording. So that was a bit of a thrill to me to be able to say, look, this is your favourite. Here is the best recording for it. He probably had to turn his hi-fi up a bit to listen to it, but...
Sad am I hold a faded dream. I keep it deep inside, but no one will ever know.
It was, it was a thrill to meet all sorts of people, and I met Buddy Greco that night and had a bit of a relationship with Buddy and did a bit of work for him.
And Gerard Kenny.
Gerard, yes, and I did the sound for Gerard Kenny because of course, it's typical. You go along with these events and you end up. Oh right. Oh, we've ordered the sound system. No, we didn't get an engineer to work it. Oh right, I'll do the sound then. So I ended up doing the sound for your brother and for Gerard that night as well.
Oh, you loved it.
Oh, I did love it. Yeah, I did love it. Yeah, apart from getting that piano up the stairs, but still. It was to have Bruce Forsyth phoned my phone to speak to you. He somehow got my number for some reason rather than yours. I don't know how that came about, but it was my phone that Sir Bruce Forsyth phoned me up on, and I kept his phone number in my phone for years. I never dared phone him back, of course, but all these things that happened that day, it was great. I mean, there was Lindsay DePaul there and Esther Branson.
Well, Mike Winters came in.
Winters. There was
Miami.
Yeah, and
it was amazing.
Yeah, and a lady who I absolutely adore, lovely June Marlowe, who I would have happily adopted as a grandmother because she was wonderful, and I did various bits of work for June as well, copied a load of tapes for her, So it's all these people that you meet that you end up, oh yeah, you do that, oh, you could help me out, So it's a useful networking night as well for me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've also fitted into your busy schedule to do transfers for clients, including reel-to-reel, compact disc, microcassette, DAT, ADAT, shellac, vinyl, and videotape formats. But you also credit yourself with tape baking. What is that?
Tape baking. Well,
a short version, Richard.
Yeah. I'll try and be short with it. It's quite simply, for many years, tape had been made using it has to have a lubricant. It has to have a lubricant so it'll run through the tape head smoothly. Okay, and for years they'd used a whale oil, which you can imagine by the 1970s, this whale oil was not very environmentally friendly. So various different tape companies invented their own lubricant. And Ampex is the one that's most problematical. There are other brands as well, but Ampex is the most problematical and the most used in that time period. And they used this synthetic oil to lubricate the tapes. And what's happened is over the years, this lubricant has absorbed moisture. It's absorbed water into the tape. And so what that does, that then pushes off the actual iron oxide that they use on the tape, which stores all the information. And so the only way you can retrieve the tape, you can make it playable again, is to put it in a special oven. And it's an oven that has to be at a constant temperature, and you have to put your tape in there for at least 24 hours. And so, I do a bit of tape baking. If I knew you were coming, I'd have baked a tape, indeed.
Well, over our time together, you've mastered all of the existing Matt Monro material, wrote album notes, helped run the website and the Matt Monro fan club meets. You've set up Dad's YouTube channel and then suggested the podcast. You've also worked with both the Cyril Stapleton, Cilla Black, Peter Sellers, Flanders and Swan and Roy Budd estates, and done transfers and restoration work for June Marlowe. Recent work, of course, includes releases by Peter Skellen, Jim Reeves, Patsy Cline, Barbara Streisand, Buddy Greco, Helen Shapiro. It's quite a resume. Now, you've also been the creative force with companies like Caldera Records, Jasmine, Warner's, Universal and Cherry Red, the latter of which has led to your recent release of a new Shirley Bassey album. Well, how the hell do you juggle everything, especially with me ringing you 4 to 5 times a day?
It's just, I love doing it. I love working on stuff. I love getting things to sound as good as they did on the day they were recorded, if that's at all possible. You know, I mean, it isn't always, but that's, it's the thrill of anybody who does any sort of restoration. I mean, if you look at the TV show The Repair Shop, the people on there who mend clocks or ceramics or restore paintings, they all love what they're doing. And that's the same for me. I just like getting things and making them sound as good as they possibly can. There's never a bigger thrill to me than a box turns up at the house full of tapes of whatever format they happen to be. And you are the archaeologist. You are the Indiana Jones of this box of tapes that hasn't been played in 50 years. And you're going through and you're putting them on the machine and you're running them through and you're hearing the things for the first time in sometimes since they were recorded, you know.
Going back on that, do you remember coming round to the house here with the shellac of Pagliacci?
Absolutely, yeah. Because
and we were scared it was going to break while we played it.
Well, yeah. What had happened initially with that is that you'd sent it to another company, the same company that did the CD for Christmas Magic, and they transferred a load of your acetates. She said it sounds awful. You can hardly hear him on it. And I listened to it and thought, yeah, that's dreadful. And I thought, well, let me have a go then. So I brought a turntable, a 78 turntable round to you, and we put it on, and I used the correct needle, which these other people hadn't, and it was fabulous. You know, I thought, oh, I can work with this. So yeah, it's
first known recording, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And the thing is, not only obviously did I get to listen to it, but because you transferred it, you know, you've kept it available now for another maybe 50 odd years, you know, whatever.
Yes.
Because it was in danger of literally, you said, it's so brittle, it could literally snap at any second.
The Pagliacci wasn't so bad. The the worst one, in fact, we've never been able to play these properly. We can play bits of them, but we can't play the whole disc, was the radio show from Hong Kong. Terry Parsons Sings.
Yeah.
Those are what's called delaminating. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's because acetate discs are a layer of, I think it's cellulose acetate. In fact, it's probably not that. That's probably what they were made of once, but it's not really what they're made of. And so it's this plastic coating on a metal disc. And, that came from a really hot climate. And so what started to happen with that one is that all the plastic parts have started to come off the metal disc. They've stopped sticking to the metal disc. And when they stop sticking, they start to shrink as well. So, so that disc, I mean, thankfully, Pagliatti is playable. But the Terry Parsons Sings is in an appalling state. But we were really lucky that somebody had transferred it for your dad to a tape, probably maybe even in the 1960s. But that's the only reason we've got a playable version of that. We've got the discs, and maybe one day we'll show it on the YouTube channel, the actual discs.
You never know.
But they are in a poor state, unfortunately. But at least we've managed to rescue the recordings from them, and that's the main thing.
Yeah. Well, DVD authoring is another feather to your bow.
Yeah.
Your projects have featured animated menus, specially created idents, galleries, and restored soundtracks. So how did you get into that then?
Well, it's something I'd done for a long time. When I was working within the education system full time, when I was at the arts college, I was video editing there, and so I learned how to author DVDs, because there were all sorts of things, projects that we did, stuff that was national projects that we did, because we were pretty well known at that art. For a little Lancashire-based arts college, it spread its wings far and wide, that place. And so I learnt to author DVDs there, and it just so happened then that whilst working with Steve Wolf at EMI, he said, "Oh, well, I've got another project, but I want to." It was Matt at the BBC, but I want to put a DVD with it. So I worked on that one for him, and that led to a whole series called Sound and Vision, where I worked on the DVDs for all of those for him. So it was just another one of those things. And I have to say, it's not something I do very much of these days, with the way that physical media is shrunk somewhat. But it's still something I can do if anybody ever wants me to.
Yeah. Well, of course, I forgot to mention that you've also started your own record label, specialising in reissues. So why did you go down that route then?
Some things are unobtainable. Some things have never been put out on CD that I think deserve to be, but there isn't an enormous call for it. I mean, I have to say that I initially started the label for you, to put out a reissue, because we were being asked for it and it wasn't available anymore. We were being asked for Live in Australia. So I set up the company for that. And I followed it up with Operation Santa Claus, the Live in Hong Kong. And then there was a guy in America who I worked with for a while, and that's where the Patsy Cline and the Jim Reeves stuff came from. So I worked with him. And eventually it got to the point that actually I want to look now at things that you can't get. But I think have never been available on CD, but I think people would like to get hold of. So that's the time I started working with the Peter Skellern estate, and I've transferred all of his private archive and various things like that. And I've put out 3 issues now of Peter's work. I crowdfund for what I do, so it's things that other people want. It's too expensive to create releases of things that aren't going to sell enormous numbers of copies.
Yeah.
So if you can find the fans who are willing to pay up front for these items and will help fund the creation of these discs in the first place, then you can get these things out there, and the fans of these particular artists will be happy. I'm working now with the Flanders and Swan Estate in a different way, because we're going to put those out as streaming releases, because we don't actually think there's enough call for putting those out as physical releases. But that's going through Michael Flanders' estate. Michael Flanders' archive, because he used to record all sorts of stuff. So I'm working with them for some digital releases. I'm trying to put out a set by the Goodies, of all people, and I've worked with Graham Garden and Bill Oddie in the estate of Tim Brooke Taylor to get that moving. Although we're stuck at the moment because of legal things with this. I've been working on this for 7 years. It's not as long as the Shirley Bassey project, which was 13. But yeah, I've been working on this one for 7 years. It's just proving ownership of things. And then once you've proved the ownership of things, getting those physical tapes off people. And that's where I'm stuck at the moment, getting the physical tapes off the people who actually hold them. They say they don't own them, but then you have to prove who you think does own them. And so that's proved and everything's signed, but then you still then have to wait 6 months for anybody to actually respond to your next email that you send to them to get everything back. So, it's difficult, but I'm saying bloody minded again. I will spend my time doing these things, chasing people up, pushing them. I've got a lovely guy in America called Martin Lewis, who was a good friend of people like the Monty Python team, and created the Secret Policeman's Balls concert and things like that. And so he's a real help for me with getting to people within the industry to speak to get through all the jargon, to go through the legalese. He's so used to this over the years. So he's been very helpful. And so I've worked with Neil in his estate recently with his archive, so I could go on and probably have done far too long.
Well, now listen, as we've mentioned before, Dad appeared on Desert Island Discs in 1975. Well, you've got a wide eclectic taste in music. So what 3 songs would you take with you if you were a castaway?
Impossible. That is utterly impossible. I'm this person who has... I'm still old-fashioned that I don't really like streaming particularly. I like to have my library of music. It's all CD, all CD based. Yes, I know, but this is it. I have 22,000 songs on my iPod, on my iTunes. Sorry, choose 3. Well, I might choose 3 today. Tomorrow there'd be another completely different 3. I find that a completely impossible question to answer. And what I would say is that I would say for Desert Island Discs, forget the discs. I'll just take a fully loaded iPod for my luxury item.
Okay, and hope they've got electricity on the island.
Well, absolutely, yes. And a generator.
In your youth, you mentioned you're a chorister at Hereford Cathedral. So did this lead to you now forming your own choir?
Trying to keep these answers short.
But it's not working.
I know it's not. So we're already at God knows what time. Anyway, so when I worked at an arts college, we had a choir. We had a gospel choir, and they were, for a school choir, they were a cut above. I have to say this myself. And we made recordings. I obviously recorded them, and I was a co-director of this choir. And we were actually the first UK school choir to ever go up on iTunes, just because I'm mad like that. And so I had this choir, and I loved working with the choir, and we went to Europe with them. We did so many things, and the recordings are still available on Spotify if anybody wants to look. Bispam High School Gospel Choir. And as an offshoot of that, I started a cappella group with some of the members of that choir, which was called the Marmosettes. Our one and only album is available also on all good streaming services. And he says, thinking that he might get an halfpenny from Spotify from somebody somewhere.
Down around the corner, half a mile from here, see the long train running and watch them disappear. Love, where would you be now?
And I loved working with these kids, and I loved running the choir. But then the arts college system ceased to exist, and I was then surplus to requirements at the school, and I went freelance. And some of the people from the choir that I'd been at school, obviously they're a lot older now, having left school and whatever, said, there's nothing like that choir that we were in. I want to be able to still sing in a choir like that. And so I went and spoke to Blackpool Music Service and said to them, look, there's a want for a community choir that's modern, that's does pop songs, that sings in harmony, that there's nothing like it in the town. So it took me a bit of persuasion, but eventually they said, yeah, all right then, go with it and let's see what we can do. And so I started BMS Contemporary Choir, as we call ourselves. Back then, when was that now? That was about 7 years ago we started that now. And it took a while to grow, but we've now got about 50 regular members. So we're doing all right. We've released one song. It's just a Christmas song called Thinking About You This Christmas, that's up on Spotify as well. And other streaming services are available.
I've been thinking about you this Christmas. I've been thinking about you, wishing you were here, so I'm sending a message back.
It was really just, there felt to be a need for that sort of choir because it's non-audition. Anybody can join the choir. You don't have to have been able to sing before. You don't have to have ever sung in your life. And I've come across people who join the choir who've never sung in their lives, and then they've come and joined the choir because, well, I don't know what else to do for a hobby, and they've come, and you find out, wow, what a voice. So never be afraid to go and join your local choir.
Well, you wouldn't let me in.
Oh, well, that's a different matter entirely. You live in Telford.
No, I think it's because I can't sing.
Well, it hasn't stopped people join my choir before that can't sing.
No, I really can't sing.
As I say, I'm inclusive of anybody. We don't audition, and people who've come to the choir not really being able to sing have spent time with me and can now hold a tune. So it helps, that sort of thing.
I genuinely don't know how you actually fit everything into a 7-day week, because on top of everything else you've done, you've performed in a vocal duet with your friend Martin.
Yes.
And you were known as Moore and Whitlam.
Yeah.
But you also tread the boards in amateur dramatic societies as thespian. So we're going to play a bit of a recording from Martin and yourself.
Are we now?
Yes, we are.
Joyce the librarian, strict vegetarian, 40 and living with mum. Wears sandals and glasses, attends evening classes, and wonders if romance would come. Though she'd never been kissed, it's not something she'd missed until some weeks before.
Okay. Well, that was interesting, wasn't it? So what's been the highlight of your career then?
Oh, heck. That's a difficult one. Well, I hope I haven't had it yet.
No, that's a good answer.
Yeah, it's... I'm hoping that there's more to come. I've done some really good, fun things, often down to your good self. But yeah, I hope that other things will come. I hope that things will continue to grow and other people will bring interesting products to me. Onwards and upwards.
Well, as we've said, show business is full of risks. What do you reckon is the biggest risk you've ever taken, and did it pay off?
I I don't know. It's difficult to say that anything was ever a risk with my side of things. It's all been a question of knocking on doors and seeing who answers. So I wouldn't necessarily see any of those as a risk as such. Spending 20 years talking to you might be considered a risk. I don't know.
That should be the highlight of your career. Cheeky. Oh, okay. So what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice.
Apart from me saying to you at midnight, get off the phone, Richard, and go to bed.
Well, yeah, that's pretty good advice. Actually, probably from you, really, which is to don't hide your light under a bushel. Don't put yourself
Undersell
down.
yourself.
Yeah, don't undersell yourself. That is probably the best advice that I've ever had, and that's from you. And it's something I try and live by now. I try and push myself somewhat more than I used to from when I first met you.
Well, we couldn't have done this interview 10 years ago. You're so shy.
No.
You've come out of your shell a lot, you know.
Yeah. And I say that's thanks to another guy who does a podcast. And he invited... I did a release for Jasmine to do with the Goons, and it was really rare material. It was called an album called Fred. And... because it was Goon related, there's a guy called Tyler Adams who's a lovely, lovely bloke from New Zealand, although he's based over here now. And he invited me onto his podcast. And we chatted for about an hour, and his podcast went out, and I listened to it and thought, oh, actually, that's not as bad as I thought it could be. And so it took me a while, you know, because that was a couple of years ago, and I eventually sort of came around to the idea that, maybe we could do that. And so that's exactly what we're doing now.
Oh, well, every time I have an idea, it usually ends up in you doing the majority of the work.
Yeah, well, I've come to expect that after all these years.
Well, one of my biggest regrets is that the BBC didn't take up our offering of The Boy from Shoreditch, which was a 4-part audio documentary to celebrate what would have been Dad's 90th birthday. Now, the documentary was nearly a year in the making, and while I did some of the research and wrote the script, you went about cataloguing every single sound clip we had on Dad's so that it could be slotted into the recording at the appropriate moments, which was a mammoth task. Were you frustrated by the fact that the BBC didn't even have the decency to listen to it?
Yes, but, you know, that's the way the industry is, you know. We had not just the struggles with trying to get the BBC to listen, but we had all the publishing problems. We tried to get support from Universal. We tried to get support from Warner. And, you know, it's difficult. And you bang your head against a brick wall quite regularly with these things. It's the way of the world, and I'm currently trying to get some other radio things off the ground. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, you just can never tell. It's amazing.
I think that was one of the biggest blow for me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, that some things that you think are going to be an absolute brilliant idea and you've got to go with that will get turned down, and no matter what you do, you can't persuade people to do it. And other things that you think
had actually listened to it and turned it down, I might have been able to bear it better. But the fact they didn't even bother,
I know.
And it's all politics, but there you are.
It is.
Well, now, Dad was a perfectionist in his art, and as he said many times throughout his career, no one ever blames the musicians or sound engineers for a cock-up. You are the one standing centre stage. He didn't suffer fools, as you know. So what's your biggest pet peeve?
People who don't answer emails.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. I find it so frustrating that, particularly when you're researching something and you're trying to get an answer for something and there's nowhere else you can get this, you're contacting an archive or a record company or whatever, and you write to them and say, look, can you help me with this? I need to find out this bit of information for this particular project that I'm working on. And then they don't respond to you. And you send them another email and they don't respond to you. And I'm afraid I make a nuisance of myself. I get to the point that I start, when they really are just ignoring the hell out of you, that I email them every day, sometimes several times in a day, until they say, oh, God, we've got to get rid of this person.
But you know what? It's not like the old days where you sent a letter abroad and had to wait 3 months for a reply, right? An email or a text takes seconds. And we've just had it, right? This BBC came to me and said they wanted to release Stan Britt's recordings with Dad, blah, de blah. And I said, not a problem as long as I get a copy. Nothing.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Weeks and weeks and weeks. And you always look at the bright side and say, it's the summer holidays. Well, they don't take children to work, you know.
I know. I always think good of people. That's my problem. But, you know, I'm like a dog with a bone, so I don't let things drop. And so if people aren't responding to me, I'm going to keep at them. And sometimes you'll still never get anything from them. But the vast majority of the time. But politeness costs nothing. And sorry, I can't help you. Costs nothing. You know, it costs you seconds to write that. Just to ignore the email of somebody who's written a very polite message to you. You think, oh, come on, don't be so rude.
Well, we must still be waiting for 50 replies from different people over the years.
Well, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, Dad travelled 9 months of every year and he rarely had a day off. You met and married your childhood sweetheart, Jen, and have just celebrated your 31st wedding anniversary. And the family was completed with twins and 2 dogs.
Yep.
Now, how do you balance your professional life with relationships?
Because I have a very understanding wife. And I work in the same building that we live, is one of the main things. So I'm always here. Well, I wouldn't say I'm always here because I have other things that I go out to do as well. But I'm here a lot of the time. So a lot of the work I do, my office is off the side to the living room. So she's sat in the living room and I'm sat in my office, you know, and so we'll shout across the building to each other a lot of the time, you know, so we do talk and we do spend time with each other. But so, you know, it's a good job that she understands what I do. And it's put up with me for 31 years doing strange things.
Well, you're a workaholic like me, aren't you?
Making odd noises in a little room off the side of the living room. Yeah. So,
well, I don't know whether you can remember this far back, but what's your favourite way to spend a day off?
What's a day off?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I do things away from here. So you've mentioned that obviously I do amateur dramatics and I work with a great company called Junction 4 Productions over in Lancashire, and they do some really fun productions. We have a fabulous director we work with, and so that's fun, you know, but that's only once a year, but you know, it can take quite a few months to go through rehearsal. So that's something I like to do in my spare time. But yeah, I mean, that's the problem. You know, if I have a day where I don't have to go anywhere or do anything, I'll probably end up in the studio anyway. Yeah.
Well, I've known you to go on holiday to the Lake District or wherever, and you're on your laptop or iPad working.
Oh, yeah, I went to America for a fortnight.
I saw you there.
Yeah, absolutely. We met up because you were over in Florida at the same time, yeah. And I stayed with my brother-in-law in Texas for the first week. And whilst I was there, I was working on the complete singles collection. So, you know, it's just the way things go.
Well, we've talked in depth about your career, but what hidden talent or fun fact do you have that most people don't know about you?
Well, I know what you want me to say here. You want me to tell them about the fact that I play ukulele as well. And yeah, I do. I play ukulele.
Was I going to mention that?
Yeah, I know you were going to push for it. You're an eye to nothing if you think there's going to be a clip of me playing it. That's not going to happen.
There is so going to be a clip.
No. I'm in charge of editing this. It's not going to be a clip of me playing it. But yeah, I play a bit of ukulele and I teach ukulele a little bit as well. In fact, my choir... now for the half an hour after my normal rehearsal, I now have a little ukulele group that I run after my choir.
One of your pet peeves has to be that when he came to the house once, I made him play his ukulele, but I recorded it.
Yes, without me realising. Yes. I don't know.
It's good.
Yeah.
So what's a skill that you wish you had apart from being able to play the ukulele properly?
I would love to have been a really good pianist or instrumentalist of some kind. Yeah, I can play a bit of keyboard and I play the ukulele, which is not the hardest instrument in the world. But I tried to play clarinet and I tried to play cello and I never really got on with it. I think it's manual dexterity is my problem, really. It's being able to do, you know, like if I were to play the drums, for instance, you need to have 4 limbs working for that. If I sit behind a drum kit, and I've recorded drums for things in the past, but I have to do it in a bit of a strange way because I can only ever use 3 out of my 4 limbs at once. I cannot use all 4, you know. So it's that little problem. It's just not having that manual dexterity to be able to play things. So I would love to have been a pianist. I mean, obviously one of my best friends, Martin, is a pianist, and there's a friend of mine called Neil as well, who's a brilliant pianist, and I am in awe of what they are able to do, and I wish they could do it. My daughter is coming on as a really good pianist as well, and it really irritates me that I've never have been able to do that. I mean, I never had piano lessons, but from the other lessons that I had, I didn't get on well with clarinets or cello, so I wasn't going to get on with a piano.
But you know, everybody I've met in the business, whether they're on stage or behind the scenes, everybody's got a secret other career wish, you know. Comics want to be singers, singers want to be comics, you know, someone wants to be an actor, and a lot of them achieve multi-talented, you know.
Yeah,
across
I mean,
the
I would have
board,
loved to have been an actor. I was told when I was at school that I had a talent for it and perhaps ought to look at it, but my main concern is I actually said to them, but actually I prefer to eat, you know. It's one of those professions where you could spend an awful lot of time out of work, you know. I mean, you have to be really lucky to become a famous actor. So, you know, it was something that I never really considered, although I would have loved it, but it was something I never really considered just because it's so difficult to make a living from it.
I wanted to be a forensics pathologist.
Yeah.
Dealing in blood.
Ooh.
But, you know, I went to a convent, right? And it was almost like an old-fashioned finishing school where we learned, you know, elocution and, you know, walking with a book on our head and sewing and cooking. In other words, we were groomed to be wives.
Well,
we didn't have any educational lessons or, you know, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It wasn't that sort of thing.
But let's not talk too much about you.
To be nuns.
Let's not talk too much about you yet, because I think at some point I am going to turn the tables and do exactly the same with you and ask you questions about...
I don't think I'll be available that week.
Oh,
now listen to me. Mm-hmm. Testimonials state...
Yes.
Richard is certainly a master of his craft. He has breathed new life into many recordings from years gone by, probably making them sound better now than they did originally. His passion and devotion to the task in hand is second to none, and his technical expertise is unbeatable. The music industry needs people like Richard. Long may his work continue. Now, that was from Steve Wolfe, who was director of EMI Gold.
Yes, it was, yes.
Another, Richard has recovered many hours of material for me. Old recordings taken from reel-to-reel tapes, cassettes and cartridges, some from as far back as the 1950s. His skill, patience and sheer love of the music shine through in his CDs he's produced for me. And to have the recordings I thought were lost forever have been restored to such high quality is simply priceless. That, of course, from the gorgeous June Monro.
Oh, lovely June, yes.
And I once said... please be focused on the word once said.
Once, yes, once.
There are no words that would quantify just what Richard has achieved, not just from a technical expertise aspect, but from being a consummate professional. He frequently goes beyond the call of duty, and it's easy to communicate with quickly, easily, and amicably. He also has a great sense of the importance of the job to the customer. He enabled me to use tracks I would never have thought publishable. The sort of projects I work on need someone to come along and do it with a love and passion for the music. This makes all the difference, and Richard does all that, and I'm proud to call him my friend. So how do you handle criticism, Richard?
I don't know. It's you come to expect it within the business that not everybody's going to like what you do. I've been very lucky, I have to say, that most of the things that I've done, if you go and have a look at the reviews for them, they're pretty positive. They're pretty positive. You're always going to get somebody who doesn't like something. I had a review turn up at one point about the Matt Monro EMI, complete EMI set for Cherry Red that wasn't at all complimentary about it. But, you know, that's what other people think. The vast majority of people seem to like it. So, you know, you just go with the people that like things, and ignore the bad things, really. You go with the stuff that's positive. No, you can't please everyone. And I'm very lucky that the vast majority of the stuff I've done and the vast majority of the reviews have been good.
Well, on a fun note, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Time travel. If I could have the ability to reverse time, to be able to go backwards in time, because, you know, I'm odd. Yeah, people have been telling me that for years, but I'm odd in the music that I like and the music that I enjoy and the artists are often of a generation before me. And I never got to see these people live, and I never had that chance. And so I would like to be able to turn back time to go and see these people. And I would also then set up something that would record things off the TV and off the radio that have since been lost. That's always been something in my mind. Go back in time and rescue the stuff that's disappeared into the ether, never to be seen again.
Hong Kong recordings, eh?
Absolutely. You know, a lot of these BBC and ITV stuff that's gone. You know, that would be lovely to be able to just have a time machine to go back and, you know, have the superpower to reverse time. But there you go. Not going to happen.
Well, finally, then,
yeah.
What legacy do you want to leave behind?
You see, it's not really about me. It's about enhancing other people's legacies. That's what I want. I would say if it pertains to me, they made the value and the historical value of somebody else's recordings more important. They made it so that other people could listen to them as the best quality that is possible. So I'm all about helping preserve other people's legacies, really, rather than it being my legacy, if you see what I mean.
Well, this was really good fun for me, and I hope I didn't put you through the ringer too much. If you want to read more about Richard or listen to some of his fabulous restorative work, then go to his website, mint-audio-restoration.co.uk. So all that remains to be said is that we hope you join us next month on Matt's official podcast.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please do think about giving us a review. 5 stars would, of course, be appreciated. And if you want to get in touch with us in any way, the email address is pod@mattmonro.com. That's pod@mattmonro.com. And you can contact us about anything you like, questions, stories, whatever takes your fancy. And we'll see you next month.
Goodbye.